Hello, everyone, and welcome. Thanks so much for joining us for our Navigating Graduate School of Education Programs, a Compass for Programs. My name is Renad Arif, and I'm the Assistant Director for Admission Recruitment here in the Graduate School of Education Admissions Office. So we've probably gotten emails from me, or perhaps we've had advising before, but welcome today for this session, and looking forward to talking more with you about how to apply to graduate school, give you some helpful tips about applying, in addition to talking a little bit about our program offerings. And then if you have any questions along the way, you're definitely welcome to type them in the chat. I'll try to catch them as I'm presenting, but if not, I will take them at the end. But in the meantime, definitely typing your programs of interest so I can hopefully tailor the session today based on that interest. And we will be sharing these slides, so don't worry about jotting everything down. I understand that there might be a lot of links in here, so you will have access to everything in addition to our recording. So let's go ahead and get started. So let's talk about the preparation. I know there's a lot that goes into applying to graduate school and obviously figuring out a program. I recall when I was figuring out a program, it was a little overwhelming, not knowing what I wanted to do, in addition to just there being so many programs here at UB. So within the Graduate School of Education, we do have 4 departments that we'll jump in and talk about. But before that, you definitely, if you're applying to other schools, you definitely want to keep track of the programs in addition to the deadlines. So our programs here within the education school are definitely going to vary from Buffalo State College, in addition to any departments within UB. I did see some here in the chat within other departments, possibly interested in other programs. So we will not have the same deadlines as, say, the College of Arts and Sciences, for example. So definitely keep track of those deadlines. If you're someone that likes to keep organized with spreadsheets, I'm one of those people. So whatever works best for you, just keeping track is important. And definitely connecting with, people within the department, whether that's seeking out advisement with faculty, program directors, or the admission office is a great starting point, especially if you're kind of trying to figure out if it's a good program fit for you or not. It all takes time, putting together your application package. You don't want to rush that either. So I always recommend, if you're stuck between programs, or if you kind of weighing between one or two, or even more than that, think of what your the pro and cons of each program. So if your end goal is like you really just want a fully online program, you want the shortest program pathway, you're looking for licensure in New York State, put together that pro and con list, and then that will kind of help you narrow down programs of interest, and you'll quickly find the right program for you that way as you narrow it down based on like your end goals. So there might be programs that could be a requirement for full-time only. Maybe you're working full-time, you're just like, I don't think that can work for me. So, having that list where you can kind of narrow down those options and your kind of top non-negotiables, I call them, where you can kind of narrow down your options that way. And as you're preparing your statement of interest, definitely have a second pair of eyes. I can tell you, when I wrote mine for graduate school, I think I read it like 100 times, but I was convinced that it was the perfect final version of it. And sure enough, I had some colleagues read it over, and there were some typos, there were some repetitive sentences and fluff. So, no matter how many times you read it, it's like your eyes are trained to read in your voice. So you can easily overlook like some minor punctuation and things like that. So having a second pair of eyes is always helpful. I definitely recommend, if you're a current UB student or currently an alum from UB, definitely connect with the Center for Excellence in Writing, because they do have a service where they can read over a statement of interest, especially if you're an alum of UB applying to another graduate program. I would reach out to the director, who's Rhonda Reed, and they do have a service where alum from UB that are applying to another program at UB can have their statement of purpose reviewed by them. The downside is that if you're not a UB student yet, you won't have access to their service of having your statement of purpose reviewed. But I would definitely recommend connecting with your previous school, or if you're currently enrolled in another school, check in with your writing center to see if they have a service that they can read over a statement of interest. And I'm pretty sure you should be able to have that advisement, especially if you're a current student in that school. So definitely take advantage of that office. It's a really great resource, especially when you're a student, you'll have access to their services as well. And then non-degree, we recommend non-degree, especially if you are, really just not sure about what program to go into, and kind of a low stakes way of dipping your toes in the water and graduate waters without committing to a program yet. So non-degree means you're not enrolled in a program, but you can take up to 12 credits as non-degree as a graduate student. I actually did non-degree myself, and I'd say definitely the best decision that helped me finalize my program of choice, because I was stuck between two programs and was recommended by a faculty member to take non-degree. I had never heard of it at the time. It was not something that was advertised on my program's website. So I was like, oh, I was interested in it. And so the caveat with non-degree is that you pay by course. So there's you can't really use financial aid for it. So it's paying out of pocket per course. But it is recommended if you're kind of stuck between programs or kind of want to preview a course without committing to a program just yet. And 12 credits means 4 classes. So you can really take up to 4 classes as non-degree. So I definitely recommend it if you are kind of weighing your options and want to take a course or two. You can take all 12 credits if you want to, but once you reach 12, you do have to be matriculated in a program to take more towards the degree. And then our alumni mentors. So we did launch our current alumni ambassador program. So these are people that have graduated from programs, and they're listed on the website. We have around 45 ambassadors that have graduated from our program. So they range from different departments. But if you can't find an ambassador from a current program that you're looking into, you could reach out to us, and we can reach out to the director to see if there's an alum that they can connect you with. We won't have one for every program, unfortunately, because we have over 90 programs, and we just aren't able to get one for every specific program. But for the most part, you will find a good list of ambassadors that you can connect with just to learn more about their experience in the program, and of course talking more about the career side. So if you're really wanting to know, what was it like in the job market for mental health counseling, for example, or maybe the higher ed program, and how that was when they went through the program. And we also have our current student ambassador program, which are for current students that are here enrolled at UB in the Graduate School of Education. We do have 7 new ambassadors from our programs. So you're welcome to go to the website. And just so you know, this presentation today has hyperlinks. So everything highlighted in blue are links directly to those pages. So you'll be able to go directly to these sites within the Graduate School of Education and access these links. So our current ambassador program, it's live chat. So you can go in and actually chat with our students. It's not email based. So you can go in and create an account, and you'll be able to reach out to those students directly via chat. And you get to learn more about them and their classes, what the program's like, or if you're interested in knowing about like field work and internships, they can speak on that as well. And then you can connect with our admission office for advisement. So if you just were like, I just need some further advisement about different careers or programs, what can help me reach my goal? We're here to help you narrow down those options a bit further as well. Right now, the applications are open for 2024. So there's going to be programs that have fall deadlines only. There might be programs that have fall and spring. There might be some summer. For anyone here that's looking into doctoral, they only have fall admission. So there's no spring enrollment for their programs. Higher education student affairs, they have an accepted students day and assistantship day built into that. So virtually most, if not all of those students in that program do receive some sort of assistantship. So that's one of the perks in that program. We do have some programs with rolling admission. So if you see it says priority and then rolling until a certain date, that means it's kind of like, think of it as the early bird gets the worm, right? So for that priority deadline, it's kind of like early bird admission review. It's also priority for any scholarships if you're interested. But once you get to that rolling deadline, once it gets to the end of that deadline, by then it's kind of like priority for scholarships has kind of weaned off. So if you're looking for scholarships, try to stick by the priority deadline when applying to those rolling programs. So definitely make note of those various deadlines for programs, as they will differ by program for sure. So our 4 departments are spanning across the counseling, school, and educational psychology. We have our Department of Educational Leadership and Policy, Learning Instruction, and Information Science. One of the nice things about the education school is our classes are small. So there's a lot of connections within your peers. You'll get to know others in your programs. And because there's kind of comparable classes among the programs, you'll get to meet others within different programs in your department. And I'm happy to share more information about the specific programs, but I did see a lot of interest in higher education here in the chat, as well as educational culture, policy, and society. So it looks like mostly higher education, and then TESOL and information science, which is great. So let's talk about the first department, the Department of Counseling, School, and Educational Psychology. And they essentially prepare students to basically work with individuals and groups to enhance development and basically resolve problems. So it's very specialized fields of counseling. So for example, if you want to work with children, then we would recommend the school psychology program or school counseling, for example. The programs that are licensure qualifying, so you'll be able to work in those New York State public schools or agencies, would be the rehab counseling, school psychology, school counseling, and mental health. So these lead to licensure here in New York State. The rehab counseling is nationally recognized. So you do take a CRC exam. So you are well qualified to take on jobs elsewhere. So you're not just bound to New York State. School psychology will focus on working in K-12 schools. So you do receive a recommendation from New York State upon completion of the program, and you'll be able to work in our public schools as a school psychologist. School counseling, same thing. You receive a recommendation from New York State to become a school counselor, and you do need to work for at least 3 years as a school counselor before you can get your professional certification. Mental health is only recognized in New York State. So if you decide to go through this program and maybe you get a job elsewhere, just know that you might have to take an exam or something in that state to transfer your credentials over. But just keep that in mind. It is only recognized in New York State. The one that's not a licensure qualifying for a program is the educational psychology and quantitative methods. It's really meant to blend the qualitative with educational psychology. So if you have a blend of a psychology background and you want more of that quantitative with it, you can go through this program, but it does not lead to any sort of licensure credential. So if maybe you want to work in assessment offices or perhaps become directors of specific programming or maybe teach college level courses, you can do that through this program. But like I mentioned, these 4 programs here are the licensure qualifying programs. So they're very specific areas of counseling. More broader, if you would like to work maybe with adults and adolescents, that would be the rehab counseling and mental health counseling programs. That's actually very specialized programs. Depending on what you're looking to do, that will kind of lead you to the direction of that specific area of counseling. And our next department is Department of Educational Leadership and Policy. So I saw a lot of interest today in the higher ed program. So I guess I'll focus on that one first. Like I mentioned, they have the Accepted Students Day and Assistantship Day. So when you are applying to that program, make note of that priority deadline. It's also priority for assistantships. So definitely don't wait to submit your application because you might miss out on getting an assistantship. So the way it works is that in your application, you'll just want to list the types of assistantships you're interested in. So for example, maybe you want to work in campus life or like in the residence halls, for example. You would indicate that in your application. And then once you're accepted, when they do that process for the interviews, you'll be aligned for an interview with the residence life, for example, assistantship. So you'll be aligned with that specific one that you indicated. It is one day where everybody kind of gathers for that assistantship day. So if something comes up, you're unable to attend, I would get in touch with the program director so that you could kind of figure out an interview reschedule for your date, so you don't miss out on the assistantships. But typically it's 20 hours of work per week when you have an assistantship. Like I said, most if not all the students in that program do have an offer that they get, which is great. So it's kind of I call it the unicorn of programs. We don't really have an assistantship day for any of our other programs. So it's really one of the unique ones that has that. They're very involved as a department. So I would definitely recommend joining your graduate student association. It'll connect you to various professional development. They do also encourage attending conferences. I know there's the CISPA conference here in New York State that I think they usually have it in different parts of New York State. And I would definitely recommend, especially when you want to present your research. They do have funds in the GSA group, the Graduate Student Association, to say, for example, pay a registration fee. So if you're interested in attending conferences, I would definitely look into that and to joining your Graduate Student Association. And there's also the Program of Educational Culture, Policy, and Society. This really kind of explores the role of education, kind of looking to K through 12 and how it plays into larger society. So you'll learn how, institutions influence education, for example, and how policy and practices limit individuals, on the other hand. So it kind of looks into the social and economic forces as well. Maybe focusing on domestic or international school settings. So you can kind of go beyond borders in terms of your research, and maybe look at educational systems outside of New York State or outside of the country, and in the context of maybe US systems, for example. And then, you can go into and focus on various areas as well. So if you have an interest in social justice as well in education, that's a great thing to get involved in. And we do have faculty to support those research interests. You can kind of see some of the books that are in the department as well. And these are actually authored by our faculty. So Faculty Fathers is actually one by the program director, Dr. Margaret Salee, that she wrote. So there's various books here that faculty have authored, and really great to see that as well. The other program, I put this as a separate category, which is our Administrative Certification LIPS program. If you want to become a principal, for example, or superintendent, you'd want to go through our LIPS program, which stands for Leadership Initiatives for Tomorrow's Schools. Essentially, if you want to become a principal, you would have to go through a teaching program first, then teach for 5 years, and then apply to this certificate program to get that level of leadership role in a school. So it does have a plan of action there to become a teacher first, get experience at 3 years, and then go through this program to be qualified. But our students have really high placement rate. It's a very rigorous summer cohort type of program as well. So definitely recommend it if you're interested in becoming a leader in a school type setting. And next up, we're going to talk about, I saw some interest here in TESOL possibly, if anyone else is interested in any teaching programs. So the Department of Learning Instruction is home to teaching programs. So essentially, if you want to teach in public schools, you'll have New York State certifying programs, and then there's non-certification programs that lead you to working in private school settings, perhaps charter schools, and various non-public school settings as well. So these programs here are considered non-certification. So that means you can work in private schools, charter schools, for example, and religious schools. So these don't require certification. And the main difference is that there's no field work that you do in these programs. So they're just core classes that require you to have a content area from your undergrad. So for example, if you want to teach math in, say, a private school, you should have at least 30 credits in math from your undergraduate to be able to teach math in, say, a charter school or a private school, for example. So 30 credits is their requirement. And then they're typically around 2 years to complete in these non-certification programs, but you are well qualified to teach in those private school settings. You can teach nationally as well as internationally. We do have some students, for example, I saw interest in TESOL, that perhaps want to teach in China, for example. We had some students teach courses in Singapore, and they decided to come back and to New York State or decided to pursue a certification program to teach in a public school. So there's a lot of different opportunities, and it's seen a big demand for ESL and TESOL, especially internationally. So if you're looking for TESOL, I'd say that's a pretty big in-demand program in terms of teaching. So if you're interested, then there's literacy, English, and then education studies, which is a bit broader and more multidisciplinary nature. TESOL does not necessarily require specific undergraduate, but we do recommend to have a linguistics or English background is helpful. And so they have paid attention to more of those majors as well. Literacy, you can really come in from any major. You don't need, there's no undergraduate in literacy that you need to come in with. So we've had students from English and various social sciences. So it's basically becoming a reading specialist. So if you have an interest in remedial reading, literacy would be the way to go. So let's go over to the next slide. I'm not sure if anyone here is interested in certification programs to teach, but if you are, there's basically 3 certification tracks to go through that will allow you to teach in New York State, essentially. And initial means an advanced certificate is basically, think of it as a temporary teaching license. It's valid for up to 5 years in New York State to teach. And then if you pursue the initial, you have to come back and pursue a professional program, which basically means permanency. So you're permanent in terms of your certification. And then we do have programs that are combined with the initial and professional, which means that you'll get everything done. You don't have to worry about coming back and doing more classes. But one of the highlights of the teacher certification programs is that there is built-in field work. So you will have a placement in school district that is facilitated through our Office of Educator Preparation, and you'll get great hands-on experience. So there's supervised teaching, and there's a requirement to fulfill your hours in the school so that you get that experience, which is also required for certification. And then once you go through our certification program, we recommend you to the state. So there's no self-recommendation that happens. And then from there, you get a checklist from the state that has the remaining requirements to complete. So you would have to complete a content exam, background check, and then completing some workshops as well. And I did include here the UB Teacher Residency Program for anyone that may have interest. So this is a dedication if you have an interest in working in the Buffalo Public Schools. Essentially, you have a 1-year paid residency, which is pretty awesome because at the end of that program, you have a position basically in the Buffalo Public Schools secured for you. So you do have to have a commitment to work in the Buffalo Public Schools in this program. All right, so the program is leading towards certification. I've listed them here. So these are the programs that will lead you towards certification. There will be a program for computer science, which will be new, that we will be advertising very soon. But in the meantime, these are the programs that we currently have. So if you have an interest working with children, we recommend the early childhood and childhood programs. There's also literacy, math, music, science, and then social studies. So if you have any of those interests, basically for any adolescent teaching programs which cover grades 7 through 12, you'll need to have a hard 30 credit hours in that content area. So if you want to teach science, so any of the sciences, you would need to have 30 credits in a specific content area. Early childhood is a bit flexible, so although we might not have your major listed, we most likely would be able to accept it. I know we've had some students from psychology that have applied. They're still eligible for that program. So if you see the list of prerequisites on the website and you feel overwhelmed that your program isn't listed, you can reach out to us and we can kind of verify if it is a suitable major. But for the most part, I think most of the social sciences are acceptable for that program. So they have a little bit more wiggle room than the adolescent teaching programs because they're the younger age groups. For admission, basically, as long as you have the prerequisites, even if you're short a couple credits, you can still get by and possibly be accepted. But the only caveat is that if you are looking to become a math teacher and you've only taken 2 classes in math, we don't recommend applying. So you will not get admission. I can guarantee you that. So you would want to maybe reevaluate what area of teaching you want to do, or perhaps there's a different major content area that might be better suited instead of having to waste time to take 30 credits and then apply to the program. So if you're short a couple of credits, you can get by and still apply, but you still have to fill any deficiencies. So if you're short 6 credits in math, you would still have to take them in the program. But if you're deficient a lot of credits, I don't recommend applying. Maybe think about a different teaching program that's better suited. And as you know, the GRE is not required, so you don't have to take a standardized exam. There will be an interview component for the teaching program, so be prepared for questions about, why do you want to become a teacher? It's helpful to be well-rounded and perhaps have some experiences working with children is great. I've had some students do tutoring and mentoring. I had a student that did volunteer at the YMCA and coaching. So all those things are great, especially when you're applying for a teaching program. So aside from academics, they really like to see well-rounded students. So I think that's really great to have when you're applying to these programs. And we also have a Department of Information Science. I did see some interest here in information science. For those that are interested in dedicating to working in a library or becoming information professionals, we have 2 master's degrees here, the Information Library Science Master's Program. This is more broader, so it's for working in traditional libraries or data-intensive organizations. We've had some students that graduated that became directors of libraries. We have some here working here in the UB libraries, actually. And or you can become maybe an analyst working in a data-intensive organization. We have one of our alum that's working in the assessment office here at UB as well on the data side. So you're not just bound to working in a library. And they do have content areas. So if you have a specialization you want to focus on, maybe on archives or a specific area of librarianship, you can definitely focus on that in a program. There's no field work in the master's program, but if you want to get some field work, I've been told you can get experience in a library setting, and it can earn you like 3 credits of, it can count towards like an elective requirement instead. I have been told it must be an unpaid opportunity. So if you have the ability to do a volunteer in a library, that's great. But like I said, it's not required. It's if you really want to get some experience while you're in the program, it will count as credit. And the other master's degree we have in information science is school librarianship. This is licensure qualifying, and it will lead you to become a library media specialist in New York State schools. So it will lead you to a licensure. And so it's very similar to teaching programs. You get recommended to the state, and it will be able to become a licensed library media specialist. There is fieldwork for that program, which is a 40-day practicum that you'll have to complete. We get students from various backgrounds, so both of these programs don't really have a specific major you need to come in from, which is great. So you will have that flexibility to essentially come in with really any major. I should also mention those 2 programs they're actually completely online department. They do not have any in-person programs, and their program coursework are asynchronous, so pre-recorded lectures, and you can kind of go at your own pace in terms of accessing the classes. But as a caveat, it doesn't necessarily mean it's self-paced for the assignments. So if you have weekly assignments you have to submit or specific papers and there's due dates, you have to honor those due dates. And doctoral, I guess we're on to this slide of doctoral programs. So I did see some interest here and potentially leadership PhD programs, and then the new EDD and the learning, teaching, and social context, which is great. So I guess I'll start with the counseling PhD. So if you have an interest in going into private practice, then definitely going through the doctoral and counseling psychology and school psychology would be a suitable route for you. We do have an alum that actually was a school psychologist, and then she went in the route of private practice after. So I do know it can lead into those various areas. And if you want to go in to take on faculty positions, you can do that after a PhD. It's a very rigorous PhD program. It actually is unique in the sense that it does have a dissertation plus a practicum that you do. So it's kind of blended to have this kind of researcher, a scientist model. So you have both practice in this program. And then the next one we have is information science. They're a fully online PhD program. It's actually the second online program that's available nationally. The other one is in California, and they have more of the European research model. So ours is more of the Western research model. It's a fully online program with the exception of a 1-week residency that you do per year in that program. But fully online, and you can come in from information science as a background, or cognitive discipline is acceptable as well. And for anyone interested in learning instruction, doctoral programs, so there's the curriculum instruction and science of learning. So if you have an interest in a specific area of curriculums, for example, or specific areas of education like science education or math education, they do have concentrations, or you could do a multidisciplinary track where you can kind of blend, for example, we've had students blend science education and STEM, for example, like maybe perhaps looking into computer science as well. So there are different ways to blend within that program and have a more multidisciplinary focus. The other spin-off of this program is the EDD here, which is the Learning and Teaching in Social Context. It's a fully online program. It's really meant for working professionals in a field of education. So if you're a current teacher or administrator, that would be a suitable program because first of all, it's fully online. You can complete it in 3 years. And it is more broader in the sense that it's not focused on just rigorous research, but they have something called dissertation and practice that you'll do. So you can actually pick up, so you would have to pick a problem in a school setting or an educational setting in general and find a solution for it. Like, what would you do to solve that specific dilemma in education? And as you know, there's plenty to think about there, but it's different from a dissertation, a traditional PhD, in the sense that a PhD requires like original research, but an EDD is more like finding a problem, and it's kind of like think of it as a project portfolio, like finding a problem and then finding a way to solve it through your techniques and your research. So it's more practical and more of a in a sense, like something current that you continue to refer to, versus a dissertation, which is more of a written, a kind of rigorous research that you can use later on for additional research, but not necessarily solving a specific issue. And then there's various formats for these programs. So typically doctoral programs that are on campus will expect full-time enrollment. So if you are a full-time professional, that perhaps looking for some flexibility, you might want to kind of seek out an EDD program will allow you to have that, versus a doctoral program typically will have full-time requirements. I do know the higher ed PhD, for anyone that's interested, does allow for part-time. And I have seen some working professionals, even some colleagues that have gone through that program that are working full-time. So if you're looking for some flexibility or, a program that will allow you that, I think that's when you're doing your pro and con list, I definitely keep that in mind to help you so that you aren't wasting your time in terms of applying to programs. And then the Educational Administration EDD, we have 2 versions of this program. There's an EDD and PhD. The PhD is more of the traditional research model, and then the EDD is meant for those that have gone through an administrative certification program, and they need the EDD to become maybe a superintendent, or they need that upper level a position that requires an EDD. But typically for those that are currently a school building leader, for example, would go through the EDD program if they need the credential. And then the Learning Teaching Social Context is actually a cohort model. So they do have a summer start, and our first cohort was last year. So it's a fairly new program. And with any doctoral program, it's always important to, read through the faculty profile, see who you might want to work with, especially as you're applying, because you don't want to, end up applying to the program only to find out we don't have the faculty to support your research. So it's always important to reach out to those faculty members and, introduce yourself and your research interests. I would start off with an email to start, and then perhaps in the email you can mention you'd like to set up a Zoom meeting with them, or if you prefer to meet in person, you can set something up, and then go from there. They'll let you know that if your research fits within their area of expertise, but you don't necessarily need to align with a faculty advisor. They don't have to tell you okay, you can be my advisee. They don't have to say that in the email for you to actually apply. So you can still go ahead and apply without getting any kind of confirmation. It's just more so that kind of preliminary outreach is important, because we just want to make sure you aren't wasting your time, and also the faculty are there to support your research interests. But essentially in the application, you will be asked to indicate the name of the faculty you'd like to work with, and then you would have to talk a little bit more about your research interests. There are some doctoral programs that have a research statement in addition to the statement of purpose. So I just keep those in mind. Those are separate documents. The research statement is more so just focus on the research you're looking to do. And then the statement of interest is more so, why this particular program, a little bit more about you as a candidate, your relatable experiences, and then what your career goals are after. So there are doctoral programs that have very specific essay prompts. So just keep that in mind, that you might have to write more than one specific written piece. All right, and the next slide is more about our advanced certificates. So these are considered, I call them professional development and bridge programs. So if you're looking to you complete maybe a master's degree and you want to add on an advanced certificate to kind of get more of that professional development, you can do that through some of these programs. I'll start off with the programs here on the right. So the applied statistical analysis, the international education data analysis, and then qualitative methodology. These are great if you're currently a UB student here in GSE and want to add on to your master's or doctoral program, any of these kind of advanced certificate add-on programs. So you'll get more of that experience to blend with your current master's degree, for example. This international education data analysis, you do have to be a current UB GSE student. So you have to be enrolled in one of our programs to apply. The Information Library Science is a bridge program for those that already completed an Information Library Science Master's. So unfortunately, you can't come in with a different master's degree. So it has to be within information science. That's more of a bridge program as well, again, for professional development. These programs here, so the college teaching, literacy teaching and learning, and gifted education fall under learning instruction. So they are focused more on the teaching side. So the gifted education, we actually reactivated it. It did come back. It was paused for some time. We have the college teaching and literacy teaching and learning as well. So if you have an interest in that reading specialist program, so literacy specialist, then the literacy teaching and learning could be a pathway after that. If you have maybe a different area of certification, for example, maybe you became an English teacher and you want to add on literacy, then you can go through the literacy teaching and learning program. So there are requirements that you need to have a certification completed in New York State before pursuing that program. And then we have the bridge program. So these are specific in the counseling degrees. You would need to have a master's in a counseling related field in order to apply to these programs. So for school counseling, this was actually based on the old format. So if you completed the old school counseling master's degree format, you could go through the school counseling advanced certificate. But New York State did update the curriculum, and the new models that you'd go through the school counseling EDM program, which is a 61 credit program. So there's really no need to come back and do an advanced certificate. So you would complete all that coursework, work as a school counselor for 3 years, and then you could apply for the professional certification in New York State. So there's no need to come back for an advanced certificate. The rehab counseling and mental health actually are bridge programs. We have folks that come in from school counseling, for example, and want to add on mental health counseling to get that licensure. You could do that. And same thing with rehab counseling. Excuse me. So these are the bridge programs we currently have. And if anyone is interested, I'm happy to share more as well. All right, so these are our online programs. Just kind of give you a preview. So that if you are looking for fully online, we do have a section on the website where you can actually, so if you click into this link here, it will show you all the fully online programs. If you're looking for like a hybrid, that's a combination of both on campus and online, you could also narrow down those programs as well. But I think that will help you in terms of the format specifically. In terms of the format of courses for online, typically asynchronous, so that would be pre-recorded lectures. If there are any synchronous classes, they would typically be after 4 p.m. So usually we have 6 p.m. is common, sometimes 7. And then for our information science department, all their classes are asynchronous. So there are no like live lectures in their program. I think that's kind of the general gist of online versus the online versus the kind of synchronous and asynchronous classes. If you are looking to become a teacher, that's certification qualifying programs, those are typically going to be on campus. So unfortunately, your options for online are going to be kind of limited there. So definitely take a look at the online offerings, especially if that's kind of one of your non-negotiables as well, to help you narrow down programs of offers. This is kind of just to kind of give you a preview of like how our students have become successful after the program, the different career paths that they've gone through. And this is just a preview, but you can definitely see our programs lead you to a specific area of teaching, for example, or a specific area of counseling. So there's no, I would say no guesswork into like what career does this take me to in terms of the program. And if you ever wanted to chat with a current student or ambassador, I think that's a great way to learn more about the career side. Like, I know we can talk about all the great things about the program as staff, but it's really our alum and current students that can really give you their first-hand account about their program, what the job market was like after they graduated, because I know times have changed, and especially with the pandemic, and certain demand for jobs has increased and certain demand for jobs has decreased. So you can definitely get a feel for the career paths as well. So you can go to this link here and chat with our ambassadors or current students. On the next slides are about tuition. I know we get a lot of questions about tuition. So just to give you a preview of the differences between in-state and out-of-state, online versus on campus. Out-of-state online. So as you can see, the in-state and in-state online and out-of-state online are very comparable. So if you're in a fully online program, you would have that online tuition rate. If you're in an in-person program, but you're taking maybe a couple online classes, you will still have on-campus tuition. You will not have online tuition. So even if you're taking like 2 classes that are online and the rest are in person, it doesn't mean your tuition will change. So it will still be an on-campus tuition. The most up-to-date tuition rates will be found on this link here. So this just includes the tuition, doesn't include food and housing, of course, but just gives you an idea of the different per credit rates. And then the next slide actually shows you from 1 to 12 credits, so you can kind of get an idea how to read this. So all of our classes are usually 3 credits each. So this column here will tell you the rate for a resident for 1 course, which is about 1,865. Full-time is considered 12 credits, so that's 4 classes. So if your program says full-time, that means you're going to be taking 12 credits in that semester. Once you dip below 12, that's part-time. So that could be 9, 6, or 3 credits typically. And you can go to this link here to see the other rates for online in-state or non-resident, for example. I put the sample here of a student that's taking a 32 credit program that's enrolled part-time as a resident, and someone taking a 48 credit program that's full-time as a New York State resident. You can kind of see the differences here with tuition. As you can see, even if you're enrolled in a fully online, a full-time program, for example, you might not have every semester as full-time. So for example, this semester here is 3 credits, and then this semester here is 9. So these are not full-time. So you won't have, of course, 12 credits per semester necessarily. But you'll be able to finish your program sooner as well with the full-time. There could be programs where it's advertised as part-time, and it depends on the courses of availability, where you may or may not be able to add more courses. It really depends on the scheduling. I believe it's we have our literacy program that's set as part-time, and literacy specialist, and it says based on coursework availability, if you're able to go full-time. It really just depends on the courses that are available that semesters, if you can go full-time or not. It may be possible or it may not, so that'll determine if you can go full-time. But for the most part, you can kind of work through your schedule. If there's a hard restriction for full-time, as typically teaching certification programs require full-time. So, kind of look through the programs. If you're unsure, you can always reach out to us and we can give you some more details as well about expectations for programs and whether they require full-time or not. But we're trying to definitely update on the website so they are clear, and it says, that you can enroll full-time or part-time. And then financial aid and funding, that's another big question we get. There's different ways that students can kind of receive funding. I'll talk about the good and bad news. So we'll start with the good. As a master's student, you can pursue assistantships. So that's kind of part-time work when you're a student. I actually did one when I was a graduate student. It was great because I could work 20 hours a week. In addition, I was able to add on additional hours. That's great. So they have that while you're a student. So it's a biweekly paycheck that you get. The bad news is that our master's programs are not fully funded. So unfortunately, you would have to seek out an assistantship or pursue scholarships or fellowships. You could still pursue financial aid. So that's the good news. I know nobody likes student loans and have to pay that after, but you can pick the type of loans you want. If you need some advisement about the financial aid and types of loans, I would definitely recommend connecting with the financial aid office so that they can give you some more details about your options. Basically, when you're applying for your FAFSA, apply for your application program first and then apply for FAFSA after. You could do them at the same time if you wanted, but you don't have to wait for acceptance to basically apply for your FAFSA. So you can actually apply for your program and then apply for FAFSA after. And so that when you are accepted, it basically aligns with your admission into the program. And then once you are enrolled, it disperses to your account. So you would go in and accept the loan. Institutional scholarships and basically UB specific scholarships and assistantships, these can be all you can find these here at UB within the education school. We have some scholarships, but not a whole lot, I'll be honest. So in your application, especially if you're applying for the fall, there's a question that's going to ask if you're interested in any of our scholarships and fellowships. I would mark that question as yes, because basically your application package for the program is also going to be your application for the scholarships. It's going to be merit-based, so they will look at your GPA. So if it's above 3.0, you're in good shape. Strong academics are great. Extracurriculars are good as well. Stellar references, of course. So everything you include with your application, they would look at for scholarships. There's also departmental specific scholarships I know they have as well. If you want to self-nominate, you could. There's a box in your application called explanatory notes. You could say, I'd like to self-nominate for department scholarships, and that way the faculty know that, hey, the student wants to be considered. It gives them some names to go by, and then they can consider you for those scholarships. So I know there's the Schomburg Fellowship, the Dean's Scholarship as well, a few to name within the education school. I put outside scholarships, but I'd say it's not as common for graduate. But if you have like an employer or something that has a scholarship or an agency that you've applied to, you can pursue those. I put employer reimbursement or UUP employees. We do have some colleagues here working at UB that pursue courses or advanced certificates, and they use the UUP tuition perks. I put payment plans. So say if you're like, I really don't want to use student loans, or I didn't get a scholarship, but I want to pay out of pocket, and kind of go at my pace. So payment plans, you do have to enroll in, and basically with that, it's like, it just basically lumps your tuition in more manageable chunks throughout the semester. So instead of paying your tuition for the fall all up front, you pay it in, I think, 5 payment plans, 5 payment dates versus the one. So you can pick like 3 payment dates, you can pick 4 or 5. I think it goes up to 5 last I remember. But so just go to the website and make sure to sign up for that. So you do have to be enrolled in a payment plan in order to actually be enrolled in that. And then I put continuing student scholarships. This basically means if you received, say, the Dean's Scholarship and they wanted to extend it for the following year, that's that continuing scholarships part. And this is kind of the slide, essentially putting your application together. I forgot to mention, if you're applying to a doctoral program, there's an opportunity for full funding. So that would include a stipend of up to $38,000. You also get tuition remission, which covers your courses, and then a position like a graduate assistantship or research assistantship. I've been asked if TA is common, but it's really not. Our classes are small as it is. So faculty don't feel a need to have a teaching assistant. But it could be possible. Maybe there are, it's just not as common here in education. So I would say it's either a G or R position is common for doctoral. And then funding packages come out after the admission offer. So usually you get your acceptance letter first, and then some weeks later, a funding letter goes out. So say it's like end of March and you haven't heard back for any funding for your doctoral program or master's program, it just means you may not have received one. And so I would either reach out to us to check in and see where it's at, or just kind of hold off. But usually by April 15th, kind of mid-April is when the letter will say to accept or decline your admission offer. So, definitely kind of take a look through the various offerings. If you're a master's student looking to get a graduate assistantship, I could tell you any office on campus can have an assistantship. So just a matter of reaching out to those departments. If you're a current UB student, I would definitely utilize the UB Bullseye, which is basically a job portal that they've partnered with Handshake. So I do know there are assistantship offerings on there in addition to like part-time jobs, internships, and so on. The downside, if you're not a UB student, yeah, you won't have access to that portal, which is okay. But it just means that if you're looking for assistantships, it just requires a little bit legwork, research on your end to reach out to the departments and give your resume out and so on. So that kind of concludes our admission session. So I will open up for questions and then I will stop the recording as well.